Hello and welcome back to the third round of the SimHound, the Mon Ultimate World Championship, our first series here on LMU. And we are at the wonderful circuit that is Interlagos. Joining me, as always, and directing us throughout the series is Sam Grant. How are you feeling, Sam?
Great, really looking forward to this. Interlagos, and not a track we typically see, obviously being ACC focused. Usually we don't see this track, so I'm really excited to see some of the great racing tonight, Scotty.
Yeah, I think last time we used this track was in a social race on a Sao Corsa last year with Formula 2 cars. That was good times. Quite a few months ago now, that was. But we're already a few minutes into qualifying. First flying laps are being completed already, but of course the drivers are still warming those tyres up, having got themselves out of the very tricky pit exit here, especially on cold tyres. The barrier's just waiting for any car to just drift into them ever so slightly. But yeah, we are away for qualifying. Currently, Seddon Tut is at top of the board, 4/10 clear of Ben Shawley, as we swap now to Tut, who's on their next flying lap. I don't think this one is valid, though, since we haven't got a first sector time for them.
Indeed, and we actually watched Shawley now, who has just gone purple in the first sector. Obviously, Shawley wanting to seal that spot from Tut, 4/10 back, so is on a starting out as he means to go on, using all of the exit there in that corner, using all the curb they're allowed to. I'm wondering if he'll go purple in sector 2 and really close the gap to Tut.
He's past the sector 2 line. That was sort of part where he's going over the curb and no time up, so that looks like another invalid lap for them. And meanwhile, Jacob Hine has got another valid lap in and spotted himself top of the board at the moment. Blomqvist going for fourth now, as Ben Shawley does actually have put in a valid lap. 1:25.260 puts him top of the times at the moment by just over a tenth.
Indeed, there's quite a gap between P1 and P2 in the LMTT3 class, so we can see it's just under a second. Obviously, temperatures tonight a bit more cooperative than last week at Bahrain in the dark. We're looking at 27 degrees track temp, so not too much of an issue with getting those tyres where they need to be, but obviously they will take a couple laps to get some temp, get some pressures, and just get a feel for the track. A lot of the drivers mentioning obviously they do need some practice, so I'm interested to see, how well they'll be able to hot lap and what difference there'll be between qualifying and come race, as we continue to watch Alistair Ramsey head up towards turn 3, I'm going to guess.
Turn 4 here at the end of sector 1, a couple of hundredths down on the best times so far. Not personal best, but they still hold pole position by 4/10. We've seen the Aston Martin maybe struggling a little bit on straights this season, but doing quite well in the corners. And this middle sector here, Interlagos, very technical, medium to slow speed corners. You got the tight right-hander there into this long left-hander. Be patient and pick up the throttles. You get to the end of it, but you'll be on the brakes quite quickly soon after into this tight right-hander. Of course, had a bit of drama in some F1 races over the last decade, but then out to the long left-hander that will bring you to the second intermediate. Will we guess sector time? It's a purple middle sector, but only by 100th, slightly wide for Ramsey there onto the grass a little bit. That'll compromise their exit, and you carry that momentum loss all the way up the hill to the start-finish line, which is pretty much at the top of the hill here.
Indeed, but setting a purple sector too early just. Let's see, obviously, when he crosses the line, what that time will be. 36.4, so obviously in the lead currently, but not able to increase and stretch out that lead. But just getting his nose in, I'd imagine Nol's not far off, really. 4/10 behind, and Pascal 6/10 behind that. Although there's a bit of change there. Vesper slotting up into 4th in that class. 8/10 off the lead, though, so plenty of time to find. A bit closer, though, in the hypercar class. I mean, 1/10 off, is Tut. 5/10 off is Blomqvist. As we watched Tut after setting a purple sector 2 come around the final corner. Let's see when he crosses the line, if he's able to replace Shawley. I imagine with that improvement he might be able to. No, he doesn't, so only just barely 200s there, so knows he has it inside him, just resetting maybe for some fresh tyres and going again. Blomqvist still 5/10 away though.
Yeah, Blomqvist, 5 turns ahead, starting another lap. Looks like they're going to continue on here rather than heading back to the pits for a new set of tyres. The important thing will be to make sure you get out of pit lane nice and cleanly. One of the cars before we came on air, I did see, was clattering the wall, going for the first out lap, and had to take a second attempt at it. So it is something that you can easily do. Luckily, the drivers won't need to worry too much about the pit exit in the races. We see Tyler Hammer now up to the line, currently sitting P11 at the moment. Their fastest time so far is a 1:26.5. That has them 1.9 seconds off. Alfie Bevan, a driver that I'd expect to be quite quick, was a little late joining server, only joined once qualifying had got started here, so hasn't had much warm-up time, but getting into a rhythm. They're currently P9, only 7 thousandths off of Nick Manders, who sits in P8 at the moment.
Indeed, great jump there for Alfie Bevan, who we've seen be a quick driver in the past, especially in this kind of format, so I imagine there's more for him to give. Again, just getting their eye and just getting a feel for the circuit. 6 minutes to go, plenty of time really. Johnny Ashley here briefly have the purple sector 1. I click on him and purple sector 1 has been stolen away by someone else. Doesn't matter, he has purple sector 2, purple sector 3, and that puts him in 2nd place in that Mustang in the LMTT3 class. Catching up to Ramsey. Knowles not far behind now, down to 3rd, obviously 4 tenths off of Ramsey and themselves. So starting right in the middle is actually there. A bit more of a gap really for the LMTT3s. Maybe there's a bit more scope for momentum loss, Scotty, for that class tonight.
Yeah, and one thing with Johnny there is he was 4 tenths down in the first sector on the last lap. Wasn't a personal best. He has set a personal best here, and it's still a 1/4 of a second down on the pole time. So Johnny struggling with the first sector relative to the Aston Martin, but if he can get the first sector right, find a little bit of time there, he could potentially put himself into pole position, as Ramsey has currently headed to the pits and is getting themselves a fresh set of tyres as we get into the final 5 minutes. Alfie Bevan putting themselves up to P6 now.
Yeah, certainly is making inroads, is Alfie Bevan, and we can see they're up to P6. 9 tenths off the leader, 1 tenth off of P5, but that final sector last time round I think was 3 tenths slower, so if he can get that on the board, that will certainly be enough up to P3, I believe, maybe P4 even. So definitely has it in them, does Alfie Bevan, as we see them there slightly off the pace in their first sector. But let's flick to someone else if I can find someone here. Purple sector 2 again, Johnny Ashley nearing the finish line. Let's see, currently P2. Does he have enough in them to replace Ramsey? Does not, but only just, I mean, 1 tenth and a bit away from Ramsey, pulling over for a fresh set of boots, and that could make all the difference.
Yeah, that first sector, it's so close in both of our classes now. 23 thousandths in the Hypercourse, 15 thousandths in the GT3s. Oh boy, it's, just that little bits of time, and it's very difficult to put together a whole lap here in Interlagos. You've got quite a few corners where it's just so easy to drop time, make a little mistake through into turn 1, very difficult braking zone, especially. It's got a late apex. You kind of have to start rotating the car in the braking zone. Makes it quite easy to lock up, or even in the GT3s, while you may have ABS, you just lose rotation in the car. If you get onto that ABS, that can put you wide of the first apex, puts you offline for the second apex, and you lose all that time then on the run down to turn 4.
Yeah, definitely so crucial. 3.5 minutes to go. We watch Basker as he comes round the final corner, currently in 4th, heading towards the line. Needs 4 tenths to make any sort of improvement, and certainly any sort of defense, as obviously guys are improving throughout the lap. Let's see him cross the line up to 5th. Was in 5th previously, I believe. Actually, might have been pushed down. Was he in 5th or 4th then? I'm not sure.
He was in 4th, but got pushed down to 5th as he was coming up to the line. There was either Knowles or Fuskin, that bumped them down. Only 14 thousandths are behind the Mustang. So just needs to find a little bit of time, but that's not easily done here. They've started with a personal best opening sector, so a good way to start this lap.
Yeah, certainly, and sure, it doesn't look like much if say Fusco Nobasco improves 1/10, 2/10. What does it make? If not, what difference does it make if oNiD is 4/10 away? It helps him defend from drivers improving as the session goes on to 2.5 minutes, and the track is constantly evolving as we're seeing drivers set personal bests constantly throughout the timing screen and throughout their laps. So crucial to at least improve your time to have that defense from drivers behind. If not, attack drivers ahead. Jacob Heim up to P6 now and on his way for another lap. Ben Shawley, who's on his way also not so quick in the first sector, but definitely I feel like will be wanting to improve and stretch out his lead from Sedentut, who's so close but still remains in P2 there.
Yeah. Sedentut into the, basically it's not the final corner number wise, but essentially it's flat out from the left-hander all the way up the hill through these much more open left-handers. It's just by taking the shortest distance in line of least resistance up to the line, and it's a purple final sector, but they don't improve on that lap anyway, as they were slower in the first two sectors. So again, they just need to put that lap together. Final sector is good as that while having the first two sectors there, and yeah, they'll easily bump themselves up into pole position. Paulo Grady on 2 personal bests, and a 3rd personal best puts him up to P6 now, a second off of the top time.
Yes, nice improvement there as we see Basker leaving the pit lane. I'm imagining he's only going to be practicing the lap and practicing a pit entry, which is crucial. We've seen it before. It's crucial to get your entry right. You don't want to go in too quickly, too slow, and especially if you're trying to manage traffic as well as Basker actually manages the pit exit, which is super long here at Brazil tonight. One definitely that practice won't hurt to get. Sedentut setting purple sectors on my timing screen. He's got a blank sector 2, but we'll have to watch his lap to see if he can get this improvement all the way to the end and overtake Ben Shawley. As it stands, he is on track to steal pole away. Oh, goes incredibly wide there at that corner. I think remains a lap invalid, and in fact, through his frustration, maybe even throwing the car to the wind there, unfortunately.
Yeah, he's going to be devastated to not put that lap together while Shawley is sitting in the pits, not even on a lap themselves. Ramsey, quickest middle sector, quickest final sector, and stretches their legs to put a bigger gap between them and Johnny Ashley, who themselves is in the pits and will not be taking pole position. Ollie Knowles has just started a final lap as well, so they'll be looking to try and jump up, try and see if we've any drivers that are improving. Vespera seems to be the only other GT3 on a lap. They've set a personal best first sector in GT3 class, but we watch Alfie Bevan quickest in the middle sector here towards the end of the session. Not quicker in the final sector though, but will bump themselves up to P3 to make it 2 Cadillacs in the top 3 of the GT3 class. Lancaster bumps themselves up to P4, putting 3 Cadillacs in a row.
Indeed. So Alfie Bevan eventually finding himself up onto the edge of the podium spot in qualifying. Alistair Ramsey setting a purple sector, just stretching out his lead from seemingly no one there. Johnny Ashley, as you said, in the pits. Ollie Knowles actually setting a purple sector 2 as he rounds the final corner. I'm going to say provisionally yes. Will eventually come across the line. We'll see what his time is, but Ashley's the one at risk here if he set a mega sector 3.
Can put himself on the front row. He does improve, and it is going to be on the front row. Alistair Ramsey does improve on their final lap as well. They didn't need to, but it just makes that pole margin even bigger, which looks quite good on the final results. And I believe that is all of our laps done. Vesparis is still running, but they have passed the checkered flag. So this won't be a lap for them. They will be starting on the 4th row for the GT3 class in P7.
Indeed, and what a qualifying. Incredibly close there at the end. But also, there are some surprising gaps. We can see there Fuskin 1.2 seconds away from Ramsey, while Ashley is a mere 3/10. So some of the GT3s getting their eyes in a bit quicker than others tonight. Tricky circuit. You do have to carry a lot of speed constantly throughout the circuit. It's crucial to maintain that momentum, particularly through the squiggly first sector. Before the long run down to turn 4, sorry. But we'll see in the race as Liam Vespers disappears there, seemingly. Should we look at the starting order?
Yes, let's go through starting order for our 33 car field. 1 hour of Interlagos coming up. On the front row, it is Ben Shawley, once again one of our reserve drivers who's made it into every race, has been doing very well this season. In front of Seddon Tutt, who leads 3 Cadillacs, thankfully all in different colours. Alfie Bevan taking P3, Lancaster in P4. Evelyn Blomqvist in the yellow Ferrari will take P5 ahead of Jacob Hine in the Alpine. 2 red Ferraris in side by side. Nick Manders in the number 50 and Dave Wood in the number 51 on row 4. Stevie Bain will roll from P9 ahead of Dan Tomlinson, rounding out the top 10. Andy Hearn just missing out on top 10 in front of Tyler Hammer, who will start from P12. Charlie Morgan and Dave Spiller will go from row 7 in 13th and 14th respectively. And last of our hypercars, Max Farrell and Daniel Lindblom, who I imagine will be quite disappointed to be at the back of the hypercar field, will round out row 8. Row 9, first of our GT3s, Alistair Ramsey taking pole position there just in front of Ollie Knowles, who bumped themselves up with that final lap. Johnny Ashley will roll off P3 ahead of the yellow Mustang of Matthias Fuzgen. Athel Basker will take P5 ahead of fellow McLaren driver Paul O'Grady, with Leon Vespres in the BMW ahead of Simon Harris in a McLaren. Trinket Tass and Mark Bryson roll off P8 and 9 and 10th in the GT3 class. Daniel Blent and Ryan Davies from 11th and 12th. Tim Bob and Christian Schlink 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th will be Jack Page and Ben Might, with Dean Smith will be rounding off our GT3 and our entire field as the drivers are now rolling up to the start-finish line.
Indeed they are. Let's have a better camera angle than that. Yeah, they're slowly crawling towards a twisty sector 1. See that BMW on the front line there, and they are indeed away. We see Amelia Hypercar, and they're pulling to the middle. They're asserting some track position for themselves as they head towards someone side by side. Almost go the Cadillac and the BMW. Cadillac jumping ahead of Ben Shawley there, sort of getting the jump there, and side by side go some more Cadillacs in the background.
Yeah, Lancaster trying to, losing out now to Alvin Blomqvist, who's pouncing on the pack of Cadillacs, and Jacob Hine in behind will be looking to try and take advantage. Lancaster looking to the inside and down the inside of the Ferrari, trying to retake P4, does get the move done. Jacob Hine following through now side by side as they head through the left-hander. Can the Ferrari hold? It'll be the inside for the quick right-hander here, but no, backside of that move, falls back into single file. Meanwhile, in the background, the 2 Ferraris are side by side. Dave Wood getting the better of Nick Manders, and up to P7, Stevie Bean nearly running into the back of them as they came into the right-handers, put them under pressure. More contact with the Porsche of Andy Hearn, who has had a really good start, up 2 places for them this race into the right-hander here. Ferrari's very difficult overtaking opportunity, that right-hander. We've seen how wrong it can go in F1 as we have a look at the positions gained. The loss, good start for Tutt, Jacob Hine, Dave Wood, and especially Andy Hearn and Daniel Lindblom too back there, getting up 1 position. In the GT3 field, Trinket Tass is up a couple of places as Paul O'Grady in the McLaren has dropped back a few places. Not a good start for them so far.
No, definitely plenty of time to go. They obviously just started as a race. Everyone getting their footing as they round and finish the first lap, seeing what kind of pace the other drivers have. And obviously we see a Mustang peel off into the pits there, maybe strategy, maybe getting out of the traffic. Others maybe repairing some damage, which I would doubt though. We see them all go single file down towards turn 1, side by side. In fact, go a couple cars. Let me see if I can find to that's Daniel Benz and Mark Bryson, I believe, going through turn 1 side by side. Lots of respect given. Porsche just edging ahead of the McLaren. And obviously it flicks left, flicks right. The inside changes constantly as the McLaren is just ahead, but behind them as well is Ryan Davies waiting for his opportunity, lapping up this slipstream from both these cars, and the Porsche's got a bit of a comeback down the with this run down to turn 4. Has he got enough of it covered as they sweep round to the left? Yes, he does get ahead at last there as the battle concludes.
We've had 4 GT3s through the pit lane, potentially for a jump start. I did see quite a few of them had big gaps in front of them, so potentially not getting the start procedure quite right. But while we were watching this GT3 battle, Ben Shawley from second on in the line has fallen down to near the back of the hypercar field, down in 15th, had a spin at turn 6. I didn't see what happened to them. Potentially we might be able to get a replay, but it's been an absolute disaster for them to start this race, losing the lead into T1 and now dropping to 15th.
Indeed. I won't be able to give you a replay, unfortunately, but disastrous for Ben Shawley's race. Let's see what kind of comeback they can provide, though, down in 15th, as you say. Long way to go, maybe with strategy as well. We've seen some mixed strategies previously. Maybe he can use that to his favour. At least he's not in some traffic at the moment and is able to get the hammer down in that free and clear air. Evan Blomqvist also putting the hammer down, setting a purple sector there as he's in P5 currently. Not far off of P4, though, of Jacob Hein just ahead.
Yeah, so it's currently, with that mistake from Ben Shawley, is currently Cadillac 1, 2, 3, locking out the podium, but Alfie Bevan is insatisfied with that. The yellow Cadillac putting the red one under pressure just in front of this battle, as Elvin Blomqvist is doing the same to Jacob Hein. And just in the background there's obviously Dave Wood also trying to put pressure on, as Blomqvist is actually leading a trio of Ferraris. So the manufacturers, the Chevys and Ferraris, all managing to find themselves on track, but that doesn't mean that they won't be fighting each other as hard as they can.
No, definitely. It does look nice from an OTD perspective, at least on the timing screen, as well as there's actually a McLaren 1, 2, 3 in the GT3 class as well. Obviously, Maya, unfortunately, in the Aston Martin down in P4 as we flick there to the tail end of the GT3 field as well. Not to, speaking of GT3, Johnny Ashley here, 2/10 off of Ollie Knowles at the... I keep on Johnny Ashley thinking this P3. Oh, P3 in class 19th overall. Okay, that's a bit confusing. Either way, is battling the Porsche there of Ollie Knowles. 4P2 in class, edging just ahead as they go through the final corner. The Mustang on the inside, though, so able to claim that for turn 1. But Porsche still having a bit of top speed comeback, which is definitely a surprise to me. Obviously, the Mustang being on the inside maybe have to scrub off a bit more seed, and actually has dropped off considerably, I must say, as they go through turn 1 and diffuse any sort of battle on the brakes there.
I'm surprised the Porsche was able to outdrag the Mustang. One of the things we haven't mentioned actually is, since our last round at Bahrain, there's been a bump change for the Mon Ultimate. So some cars might be slightly stronger, some might be weaker, and their sort of strengths and weaknesses might have shifted around a little bit of a slide there for the Porsches. Ran out wide and has allowed Johnny Ashley to slip down the inside. They bang wheels coming through turn 5, and who's going to be brave into turn 6? Johnny's got to try and hold around the outside. A lot of curb usage for the Porsche, and they just sneak out in front. Johnny Ashley's going to have to back out as they head into turn 8.
Indeed, these two feeling really racy. I too am also surprised at the Porsche's comeback, but maybe Johnny just letting that one go for now. But yeah, bop changes to consider as well, and maybe the drivers finding themselves surprised at maybe the extra speed that they have found themselves with as they go around the twisty Interlagos tonight. Mustang, they're using a lot more of the exit curve as well than the Porsche, just trying to carry that momentum a bit more. But yeah, still a long way to go and a lot of jobs to do. The leader in the hyperclass, though, clear 3.5 seconds from Alfie Bevan. That set him, of course, on his way and building that gap as well. Jacob Hyde not letting Jack Lanster go there, 3/10 behind him there as they find themselves a massive gaggle of cars here as they're already coming across those GT3s that pit earlier on in the race.
Yeah, they had those drive-through penalties, and Lancaster was in second last time we looked at them as a lock-up there for the yellow Ferrari of Blomqvist. But Lancaster got caught behind a BMW into turn 2. Alfie Bevan pounced, took the place, and Jacob Hein was challenging them into turn 4. Hasn't quite been able to keep up over the lap though, as this queue of hypercars, and one is spinning off. Stevie Bean has spun off coming out of turn 12, dropping down the order, is getting back going again, but they are going to be down to the 15th place. That was held by Ben Shullies. We get a replay here into this left-hander, just picking up the throw maybe too early, not enough TC, and goes round for a spin on to the grass, down to 15th place. And now Ben Shully, that was there, has now made themselves up to 12th place, getting past Dave Spiller through the first couple of corners. But we'll go back to Elvin Blomqvist leading the Ferrari trio and looking to put an Alpine in the middle of them as they try and pass Jacob Hein.
He did find himself going up the hill now, down to the inside of the Alpine. The Alpine with a bit of a squiggle there, and it says contact, but obviously Elvin remaining behind for now, but does have the Ferrari of Dave Wood behind, putting the pressure on there. He can't be too nice to Hein, who he's obviously come into contact with, lest he loses P5 as well. Gap has grown there, but definitely Elvin has the pace, or at least feels like he has the pace to get past Hein. And Hein already up 2 places, doesn't want to lose that, wants to go after more. And I'm sure Lancaster as well conscious of this, as there's a bit of a lockup. We see the tyre smoke, and I think that's Hein disappearing off the circuit. Down to P8, yeah.
Yeah, running wide and losing quite a few positions from that. Will also have put a flat spot on their tyre, going to make it even easier to lock it up throughout the remainder of the race. And we don't expect any drivers to take new tyres in this race. It isn't long enough to really get an advantage from them. Plus, you've also got to navigate that tricky pit exit lined with 2 barriers on them, which, as you mentioned in qualifying, very difficult. So it is. But Dave Wood now on the back of Blomqvist, trying to challenge the fellow Ferrari. But not quite close enough to go for a move this time by, as the GT3s are still fighting away for the final podium position. As we were watching the hypercars here, Ollie Knowles dropped behind Johnny Ash and is now coming under big pressure from Leon Vesperez. Actually had a little bit of a bump through turn 10, but looks like a poor exit there for the Porsche, just getting a little sideways over the curb. Is holding the racing line. The BMW right under the rear wing. Will the BMW pull out? Doesn't look like it. They're maybe just being a little bit cautious in the slipstream, and that Porsche is now starting to pull away a little bit. So maybe the Porsche going for a lower wing angle, has that straight line speed, but just struggling for grip a little bit.
Yep, certainly there. We just see the Porsche sliding through turn 2 as well, as we see the throttle inputs from the BMW behind, trying to catch up to the Porsche, using a bit more exit. I think just washing wide. Obviously careful not to pick up any warnings there, dropping off the back of the Porsche, as you were saying. Again, Vesper's one of these that are applying pressure, feels the pace. And, you know, it's really crucial not to lock up here in LMU. It's a bit different to ACC, so applying pressure now is, you know, even more important and even more effective than previously, as the Porsche opens up the right-hander here, carrying all the speed as they can, micro sliding throughout this, just keeping a hold of enough grip to stay on the circuit and putting in the right direction as the BMW closes up on the brakes, and yeah, straight away back into the rear view mirror of the Porsche.
Yeah, while we continue to watch this battle, just a little update on the hypercars. Steve Wood has made a mistake, and Jacob Hein has actually got involved with an incident with a GT3 car, spun round through turn 6, is getting going again, but has dropped down to P11, P12 now. We'll get a replay of this so we can see Dave Wood there behind has dropped a couple of places. Andy Hearn now in front of them as well. But then coming into this, just trying to follow the Porsche through on the Aston Martin, but the Aston Martin closed down the gap, and Jacob Hein coming out with a spin from that, unfortunately for them. It's dropped them back to P11 now in front of Tyler Hammer, but that's promoted Ben Shawley into the top 10 now.
Indeed, so on an incredible recovery drive, I have to say, just inheriting those places a matter of knots, as we watch Andy Hearn now in the Porsche there amongst the Ferraris, trying to hold off lap the GT3 field there. That's obviously taking the pits. Ferrari ahead of Manders, his next target, his next rival, keeping the pressure on. And we've seen how much the pressure, these mind punts, if you like, are working really. A bit too late on the brakes, a bit too much pressure. Suddenly they're locking up and all their pace is gone. But sticking with Manders for now is Hearn slowly closing up, actually closing up massively as there's a Porsche they have to lap. Heading towards the next right-hander. The Ferrari opened that corner again massively, more than the Porsche is. But I think you have to be incredibly brave here, Scotty, to get the job done without a mistake being made by the driver ahead, bar maybe turn 1.
Yeah, it is very difficult, but there are going to be opportunities. The hypercar field is into the main GT3 pack. We've already seen a couple of incidents between the two classes, as Andy Hearn having to go the long way round of one of the GT3 cars. You can see this battle, sort of 5-car train in the GT3 field, making it very difficult for hypercars to spot gaps. But the BMW going to the inside now. The Porsche trying to squeeze and trying to come across. That's so close to contact as through come the hypercars, looking to the outside there for Blomqvist. As you can see, who's opened up a gap to the other hypercars behind them, but side by side further back, Simon Harris in the red McLaren was looking for a move on Trinket de Tas in the Ferrari. But here come more hypercars. We've got the Ferrari of Nick Manders here is weaving their way through the traffic. Then Andy Hearn in the Porsche and Dave Wood trying to get back the positions that he lost from that mistake, looking to the inside of the BMW into turn 4. Wasn't quite close enough, but they'll get down the inside of turn 5. But now as they come up to turn 6 and 7, they'll have to decide which way of the Porsche. The Andy looking to the inside, Dave Wood thinking about going around the outside of Andy Hearn in the Jota Porsche, but not committing to a move in the end.
No, not for now anyway, but still, again, we've got the pressure. You don't want to use too much tyre, you don't want to use too much battery. It's a long game, especially in the hypercar classes. They try and navigate some more of this GT3 traffic. And a bit of a flashing coming from the Porsche as well. There are 2 races going on, obviously, and there is a fine balance between respecting the other classes and also maintaining your own balance. But some things you have to remember is, sure, you've got to let these hypercars go, but so do your opponents. And if you can do that, as easy as you can, then maybe you can get some advantage. Drop back now has Dave Wood from Andy Hearn, though, unfortunately. So we'll flick, I think, to a different battle. Ben Shorley here, still on his recovery drive, obviously. Now on the back of Dan Tomlinson. Gap is closing as we speak, as they head towards someone. To the inside goes Dan Tomlinson, to the outside. Obviously, Ben Shorley is around turn 1. The inside becomes the outside, and actually they flick to be single file instead of side by side. And Ben Shorley dropping off a number of tenths.
Both of those cars sliding around through these Senna S's. As we see crash in the background, that's Charlie Morgan sliding off the track, combined, and that's more contact with another McLaren. Things are getting very dicey through the first few corners of the lap. This is the replay of Charlie Morgan coming through turn 2. We'll look to the outside of the Porsche. The Porsche just gets a slide and they come together, sliding across the track. You see the BMW, the blue Cadillac, having to take avoiding action, and then one of the McLarens further in front also gets collected in the mess. But yeah, drama as the hypercars and GT3s really struggling, sort of working together, or not working together in this case, as we see more contact with the Cadillac there. Daniel Lindblom getting into the blue Cadillac in front of them. That is Tyler Hammer. But yeah, it's been a very messy race so far, and well, with how short Interlagos is, we'll certainly have a lot more interclass issues, shall we say, as the race goes on.
Yeah, certainly the hypercars, at least always there's contact between Jacob Hine and Dan Thompson as they round their way through turn 2, now turn 3, and Jacob Hine tucking in behind Dan Thompson into the slipstream of the Cadillac. The Alpine obviously wanted to get past as cleanly as they can onto the inside now, flicks back to the slipstream, thinking better of it. Maybe there's not enough overlap, as just putting the pressure off Dan Tomlinson, who's constantly under attack in these last few laps, it seems. And Jacob Pine, yeah, not helping as there's more GT3 traffic. And yeah, the hypercars having a bit more flexibility than the GT3 cars of when and where they want to get the job done. It actually goes wide, does Jacob Pine, sliding all over the place, trying to get the power down, trying to get the car stopped when it needs to be, and trying to maneuver it while staying on the track, stuck behind the Aston Martin. Sorry, it seems Dan Tomlinson trying to get past him, but unfortunately he could get stuck. But another BMW coming to the rescue there, and Jacob Pine. This is incredible watching some of this traffic and some of these hypercars trying to get past. It's really mixing things up, Scotty.
Yeah, with especially how technical the middle sector is. As a hypercar driver, you can't just drive round and you think, oh yeah, I'll make easy passes. You know, you have to really set up the moves, because take turns 9 and 10, the long left-hander, bit of a straight then before turn 10. You know, that is a short straight. It's not a lot of distance to get a move done. So you have to set the car up ready to get alongside the GT3 car. Is you're not going to get in front of sort of clearly in front of them before turn 10. The straight is just that short. So you really need to make sure you set up the move properly to get it done cleanly. We ride on board here with Dan Tomlinson still following Jacob Pine a little bit deep into turn 4. Gotta make sure you don't run wide outside of the white line there, as it will pick you up track limit warnings, and it's quite easy to do so throughout the race. Just gradually pick them up and eventually find yourself with a drive-through penalty.
Yep, definitely. We can see how technical it is, how much steering lock is needed in some places as well. All the way around, we see Dan Tomlinson with the steering wheel, balancing the throttle, balancing the brakes, carrying just enough speed, managing the steering so you're not on the brakes too heavily while providing too much steering. It is such a fine balance here, so tricky in these hypercars without ABS typically, obviously, as well, managing that whilst also trying to keep up with your opponent and not letting them get too far away. And as you say, also trying to set something up, as we see the Alpine go wide in the final couple corners there. Once again, this gives Dan Thompson a nice run going through the final long curve here. Washing out wide, flicking to the inside now as the Alpine previously defended. Let's flick to an outside shot so we can see what the progress is like. They go side by side towards someone, but the Alpine still just ahead as they enter the braking zone. Onto the brakes goes Thompson. A bit of a lock-up, bit of some smoke coming off as the inside and outside flick to the other side. Bit of contact as well. We see in the background as well the Porsche entering the mix as well and just making things even more complicated.
Stevie Bain's got a good run after that contact. Has got pulled to the inside here of Dan Tomlinson. How confident will he be on the brakes? Not as confident as the Cadillac. But Dan able to hold it the long way round, will hold on to the final top 10 position for now. But Steve Bain, of course, on a bit of a charge after earlier mistake coming out of turn 12. Will be looking to try and get past Dan, maybe put some pressure on the Alpine as well. Is a bit of a slide there sideways for the Cadillac coming out of turn 8.
Indeed, and all these little micro slides, sure, they mean nothing now, but we're only 40 minutes in. Give it another 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and they're going to be feeling the effects of the slide as the Alpine once again has caught back up to Dan Tomlinson, actually fallen back to Dan Tomlinson, as they do have their own issues, but masked perhaps by Dan Tomlinson's own issues, that he's practically pushing the Alpine there through that corner, not going wide this time as the Alpine going through the final curve now. Three in the line there as they approach another GT3. McLaren seeing this in his mirror, I'm sure, hoping they can get to the long straight before these cars catch them. Nope, no time for that. They've all got to get past before turn 1. Can they all make it?
They've got to be careful. It's the yellow flag into T1 as Dave Wood, we'll see on the inside on the left there, has spun, was trying to go for an overtake down the inside of Nick Manders, but wasn't far enough along the inside. They came together. Dave Wood coming off worse, very awkward place to rejoin, and he's dropped all the way back down to 15th. We've said that a few times for drivers getting involved in incidents or mistakes. Dropping to 15th, he too will have to make a recovery drive. So, yeah, unfortunate mistake there as Dan Tomlinson dropping back from Jacob Pine. I wonder if Jacob, just from an earlier contact, has a bit of damage and is struggling with consistency, struggling with making mistakes just because of some damage.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, a little bit of aero damage here, especially with the way, how easy it is to lock up. A bit of aero damage, and you're locking up more often than not. As Stevie Bain also locks up down to the inside of the Cadillac of Dan Tomlinson there. We can see, if the camera wants to show us, Dan Thompson remains ahead for now, but Stevie edging his way into more and more of the Cadillac side mirrors, more so than the rear view camera, and has dropped back now. But yeah, definitely damage, and that's one that maybe he's thinking he'll have to repair if he chooses to pit stop last week, which I think was an oddity, to be honest. We saw a couple of cars, a couple of drivers deciding they can do it all without stopping tonight. I'm sure we may see everyone stop, to be honest. They still battle through turn one, a bit more of a lockup, a bit more tyre damage perhaps, as they flick now towards the right and once again towards the left. We can see how hot the brakes are getting as well, with a massive glow of the brakes there through that sector. Flicking to the inside is Stevie Bain, almost a bit of overlap between them, and still edging ahead, but decides... No, he's going for it. Indeed, there's contact as Dan Thompson tries to recover. Side by side they go. I think maybe Stevie going to let him go after that.
Yeah, we'll need to, is Stevie just sort of trying to pick out the breaking point at which, you know, he either backs out or he commits to trying to make a move without breaking too late. Just didn't really get that point quite right. In that awkward position of not far enough alongside to be warrant racing room, but did have a little bit of overlap with that awkward contact. But we cut further up the field. Andy Hearn has caught up to the back of Nick Manders, but also has Ben Scholley in their recovery drive right on the back. Is looking to the outside here as the BMW driver, but swaps back to the inside here. Well, we'll get alongside, but we'll have to get the move done under brakes. Braking at the 50-meter board for turn one. Lockups for both drivers. They both just get to slow down, avoid any contact, and carry on through the CNSs as Andy Hearn has the difficult task of trying to attack Nick Manders, but also having to defend from Ben Scholley.
Indeed, incredibly difficult task, and most of the time in this position you're more focused on defending, as Ben Scholley practically pushing him through that corner there. You're more focused on defending than attacking, if I'm honest. Ben Scholley there all over the back of the Porsche of Andy Hearn as they round and find some more GT3 traffic left, right, all over the place. They're going to have to wait and be patient and find a gap instead of just forcing their way through. And actually maybe Ben Scholley trying to take advantage of Andy Hearn caught in that train, trying different lines. And actually, not only does Andy Hearn get overtaken, but so does Dave Woods there with all that checking up.
And Andy Hearn not expecting the checkup, ran straight into the back of Nick Manders. Luckily, that didn't escalate into anything further. So yeah, a lot of traffic for the hypercars to be dealing with. Lancaster had also closed up to Bevan for a moment because of that traffic, but since dropped back again. Is just having a big effect. So the drivers really struggling to make clean moves in the middle sector. Up towards turn one now. Andy Hearn still on the back of Nick Manders, won't be close enough for a move this time, as we see a bit of a lockup for Ben Scholley in the foreground. Slightly better line through turn 1 and 2 for Andy Hearn as he got the momentum though as they head down turn 3. But we're going to cut back to Dave Wood trying to defend from Dan Tomlinson, who is sending it round the outside. If they can hold it there, they'll have the inside for turn 2, but they're not quite far enough alongside. Will Dave Wood get compromised by the McLaren? No, doesn't quite look like it. So Dan Tomlinson tried an ambitious move there, didn't quite work for them.
No, not this time. Wait, 35 minutes to go. It feels like they've lapped the GT3 field, 5 times already, but there's plenty of that still to come. Tuck, meanwhile, is just pulling a comfortable gap, lapping these cars at his own pace, 10 seconds clear of Alfie Bevan there. Jack Lancaster, though, not letting Bevan go. Just under a second now, and they flick just over a second, as I said that, to the Cadillac in second place. Maybe these guys are just riding it comfortably, though, letting their tyres go as long as they can before they start attacking, obviously, whilst keeping the pace up. Hearn, I think, it's probably the closest. Actually, Charlie Morgan, 3/10 off here of Max Farrell near the tail end of the hypercar field. They too lap some GT3 traffic.
Of course, Morgan had that spin contact with the GT3 Porsche through turn 3, so we'll be looking to get out of that what has been 15th place occupied most often by drivers have come together with someone else or made their own mistake. So Morgan to the inside of Farrell as they come up towards the start-finish line. Again, they'll have to get the move done into turn 1, but the Porsche just getting in front and pulls in over across the nose of BMW, having cleared the overlap. Will get held up though by McLaren here, who's actually let them go through turn 2. And yeah, Charlie Morgan just continuing to put pressure on Max Farrell.
He does Handy Hearn here. Once again attacking Nick Manners and still finds himself within some GT3 traffic. You know, as you're saying, incredibly tricky, especially in these technical twisty sectors, as they navigate another lapped Porsche there, and indeed a BMW just ahead, and Manners using this and squirreling away as quick as he can whilst Hearn is navigating this and being patient and waiting for an opportunity to get past the lapped traffic, who themselves are of course battling. We see a Christian Slink 3/10 off the back of Ben Mayat behind that beautiful looking Aston Martin, I may add. Currently, yeah, chasing down each other there.
Dave Woods trying to get a move done on Tyler Hammer. Might just have it done, but has made a mistake, ran wide through turn 12 and hasn't quite got that move done, but they were side by side for a good few corners there. Look, in a bit of a gap from the GT3 traffic, passing a Porsche, I believe, of Mark Bryson. But yeah, Dave Wood again trying to recover, having spun at T1, a lock up there for the blue Cadillac of Hammer through the first couple of corners. Who gets the better launch? Who gets the better drive? Dave Wood running the curb more at turn 3 as we cut back to Lancaster, who is onto the back of Alfie Bevan once more.
Indeed, you know, catching up to P2, has it in sight, just keeps putting the pressure on now, waiting for his opportunity to get something done. It's almost halfway through the race, so it's almost time where you can justify doing a strategic pit stop for the undercut, but that traffic is everywhere. It's something you can't really account for. Sure, you can look at the map and see where they are, but you're going to end up in it, you know, inevitably. And if you've got clear air now, as does Alfie Bevan, why sacrifice that for a strategy call to try and get 2/10 ahead of your opponent? But now stay on track, put the pressure on, try and go for that mind punt as we've seen so often done as they go through turn 1. Now turn 2, fairly even there, Cadillac on Cadillac, but at least Jack Lancaster here has some slipstream and doesn't have the pressure of a full rearview mirror of Cadillac.
Yeah, these two just taking it nice and easy at the moment to clear from the traffic, knowing there's still a lot of the way to go through the race. So yeah, the gap has opened and closed as they've come across traffic. Lancaster closing in a little bit braver through turns 6 and 7, but not quite close enough for a move into turn 8. Following through the middle sector can be a little bit difficult with the dirty air a bit as we pass the halfway mark. Matthias Fuschken down the inside of Daniel Benz at T1. McLaren holding around the outside, will hold on to the place with the inside of turn 2, but has the Mustang got a better launch off of the corner through turn 3 in the slipstream now as they head towards turn 4. The Mustang will pull to the inside. How brave will they be on the brakes? Much braver. Have they got the car slowed up to keep it on the track? Yes, they do indeed. Good move there from the Mustang, and they are up to P8 in the GT3 field.
Indeed, here's Ben Meyer and Christian Slink once again battling for P11 and 12 in class. Slink there in the McLaren in the slipstream of the S-Man, taking a wider later entry to try and get some more speed and momentum carried for this next kind of mini straight, really, before the next medium speed right-hander trying to close the gap on the outside. I don't think anything's possible for some time now. This is the awkward thing about Interlagos. You may have a mega run, but unless there's space to get your car in and get the job done, you just have to be patient and wait as Jack Lancaster still fights Alfie Bevan for P2 as well.
And thank you to ZK Sim Racing for subscribing for the second month in a row. It's great to have your support here at oNiD as we continue to watch. Coming up on that GT3 battle that we were just watching for Bevan and Lancaster hasn't affected them too much as they're coming towards the start-finish straight. Of course, the easiest place to get a move. A little twitch there for Alfie, but it looks like they've still got a good drive off of the left-hander. As the track is starting to get a bit darker now, maybe a bit more cloud cover. The lights of the cars just becoming a little more prominent. But Lancaster not close enough to make a move this time round, as we see Stevie Bain still has got the move done on Dan Tomlinson and is up to P9 now.
Indeed, as they continually lap GT3 cars, and a bit of a squirrely moment there for Dan Tomlinson, but keeps it on track and pointing in the right direction as well. We can see also the battery usage there. We've seen that recently, obviously, some drivers having issues with their battery management, especially some other GT3 cars pitting, and difference of strategy. All looks fairly even, if I'm honest, looking at this now today. 31% looks like the lowest in this class, and 43 looks like the highest, so really not that much deviation. So it looks like they're all kind of on the same strategy, and probably all going to make it to the end in that case.
Yeah, well, they will need to pit. We are just over halfway through. Most drivers seem to be down to about just over a third of their energy, so they will need to pit with about 10 minutes left in the race. But with 43% energy for who was it? Was that Nick Manders there? They might be energy saving. It'll be very tight to make it to the end, but they would certainly need to save a bit more energy, but they're certainly the most likely driver to try no-stop strategy at this stage.
Yeah, definitely. It will be incredibly tight, as we are with 26 minutes to go, as Daniel Benz here pits. His speed was 0 momentarily. I thought there was an issue. No, he's just in the pit lane as we watch Daniel Thompson still chasing down Stevie Bain, trying to get into the top 9, if you like. Jack Lancaster also trying to catch P2, Alfie Bevan, keeping him on his toes, and meanwhile Sedentud on his way, building that buffer up, and having that nice gap there. Obviously, as you say, everyone yet to stop, we think, and you know, sometimes pit stops don't go as you expect, as you plan, and you could find yourself in a battle you weren't thinking you were going to be in.
Yeah, we briefly touched on the pit entry in qualifying, but we didn't really talk about it in any detail because it is a bit of a difficult one here. It's not a straight line into the pits. There's sort of a bit of a chicane, which can be very tricky with the hypercars, not to lock up in, get the car slowed down. Also got to remember, if these drivers pit with 10-15 minutes left, the tires are going to be quite used, especially the front tires. Interlagos eats through the front tires and actually does make it very difficult to stop for pit lane, especially if you're used to practicing the pit entry on new tires, you know, going out doing 1 or 2 laps and then practicing the pit entry. You know, that gives you a false sense of security on how late you can brake. Very easy to make a mistake, as we watch Jacob Hine right on the rear bumper of Andy Hearn. Coming up to the start-finish line, is the slipstream going to be enough to get them alongside? They'll pull to the outside. How brave on the brakes. Andy Hearn squeezing them to the outside. A bit rude there from the Porsche driver. A bit of a lock-up from Jacob Hine, but they keep it alongside, and they will just slip in front of Andy Hearn for P7.
Yep, incredibly close battling there. I think that's probably where we're going to see the majority of moves done turn 1. So having a nice run out of the final kind of twisty section, and have that exit through the long curve of the back straight, the final corner, sorry, and into turn 1. As and yeah, indeed dropping off in through sector 1 there, obviously with the overtake as well, but down 1.1 seconds from the best sector 1, and dropping off of P7, unfortunately, but plenty of time for a comeback. I mean, as I said, there's always plenty of time until the checker flags waved, and indeed maybe going wide as Jacob Hine there in the Alpine yet again, giving Andy a sniff of opportunity. And you know, that's the thing, you see moments like that and suddenly you think, all I've got to do is be consistent, stick to a decent racing line and on track, and maybe there's a chance of getting positions up on the leaderboard.
Yeah, especially if Jacob Hein is struggling with a little bit of damage, struggling for consistency, there may be an opportunity for Andy Harn. And of course, GT3 traffic, we've seen how chaotic, how many issues it's caused for the hypercar field already. I'm sure we will see more issues throughout the remainder of the race as we watch Lancaster still following Alfie Bevan as they're coming up on another couple of hypercars going either side of the Aston Martin there, just showing sort of how sketchy some of the moves can be.
Yeah, certainly. Let's watch on board for a few corners or so, just to watch, how much the cars actually move there. There's a lot of drifting out in these cars, and you kind of have to anticipate that as well. So it's not just a case of pointing, steering, and going in that direction. The car is constantly moving, and yeah, we can see that now on board, watching from the back of P2, Alfie Bevan there. And we can see also how much it moves. The gap constantly closes up, expands, closes up again, and we can see that here whilst riding on board, cutting the inside there nicely. You don't want to use too much, you don't want to leave it all on the table though, as it goes through the final long corner now with the GT3 in front, having to manage that flick to the inside obviously and stick in the slipstream of Alfie Bevan as much as you can. Gap's not closing much. Not going to be opportunity into turn one. On the brakes, we can see as well the difference, the confidence the guys have on the brakes there, and also maybe how much tyres, how much grip they've got left to use before their stop, obviously, and how much they can maximise that to their advantage. And really, I think it's crucial to get turn one absolutely nailed. The rest of the laps, if you're a bit sloppy through some of these corners, there's not really a chance for your opponent to take advantage of it.
No, there isn't. I mean, the most important corner is turn 12, because then you're flat out all the way up to turn 1. So if you do make a mistake there, get onto the grass on the exit, slow your momentum down. That could be the move that then lets the car behind through, as we see the two hypercars passing another GT3 into turns 6 and 7. But yeah, and then turn 1, if you do make a mistake through turn 1 or turn 2 itself, that can then compromise your run to turn 4, which is your next best overtaking opportunity. But I mean, with how easy it is to lock up in this game, especially the medium and slow speed corners of turn 8, of turn 10, you run wide enough, and yes, you will give the opportunity for the car behind 2 points. So, you do have to be on it every single corner around the lap, but some have a little more leeway than others, let's just say.
Yeah, certainly still seems like it as they come up once again to turn 1. This time I think both his drivers or lock up there as well from Bevan, giving Lancaster a sniff of a chance, but just having to wait for his chance. I'd imagine Lancaster may be thinking, hopefully Bevan pits and I can do a smashing lap, as we see a BMW exiting the pit lane as well and rejoining the second. I believe that's Charlie Morgan, but I'm not entirely sure, as they head up towards the left-hander up ahead. They're side by side because there is a G3 ahead. Lancaster's struggling to get past without being too compromised really, and that's really opened the gap then now to Bevan, who could get on his way, do a stellar in-lap perhaps, and not worry about the overcut.
Drivers still have about 25%-ish energy left, so can go by another 10-ish minutes. So don't expect any pit stops just yet. A few drivers have been coming in early, though. Dave Wood, one of those drivers in the pit right now. Also in the GT3 field, as we cut to Fuskin now behind Bryson, as the red caddy trying to get past but running it in too deep, running wide off the track. But these two GT3s side by side, there's no gap there for the hypercar. They have to be a little bit more patient as the two GT3s run side by side through turns 5, through turn 6. The hypercar trying to make it 3 wide down the inside, has to back out of that one, but Fuskin doesn't get the move done on Bryson. We'll have to wait for another opportunity.
Indeed, really using up all his tyres, everything he's got now to get that job done, as they're nearing the final 20 minutes of this race. Still under 5/10 though, so as long as it's in that window, I'd say it's doable on any one lap if the Porsche makes a mistake. But for now, defending nicely from the Mustang of from the Mustang of Matthias Fuskin there. Jack Lancaster still not letting P2 out of his sights, remaining 3/10 now is the gap, just keeping him there, keeping him honest, and waiting for his chance to strike.
Indeed, we cut back to the GT3 battle. Fuzkin thinking by going to the inside, but the Porsche just covering it off for now, as they still have that Cadillac behind them, or has dropped back behind them now, if it's not a different Cadillac. He's looking to the inside now, and we'll get a cleaner move done this time, but another Porsche is coming up in the background. Will Porsche get moved on the Mustang? No. We'll be a bit patient and wait for one out of turn 5. Fuskin just continuing to apply the pressure again, has a bit of a run up towards turn 6, but not close enough. They try and follow the hypercar through, look to the inside, but not quite able to. The Porsche shuts the door beforehand, looking to the inside again into turn 8. Not brave enough on the brakes to get alongside. But yeah, Fuskin certainly putting the pressure on, looking for any gap to try and put the nose down the inside of.
Indeed, they go almost side by side now through the twisty stuff. Around the right-hand side, the Porsche is still just ahead, but now it's a left-hander, which means the Mustang has the inside, keeping it there, not dropping off. And now the crucial corner, as you were saying, get this right, and you've got a nice run towards turn 1. Porsche sweeping around the ice, carrying all the momentum needed, but the Mustang's just hit on the inside and gets going with a bit of a gap to the Porsche now as they head down the long straight. Porsche using all the exit, all the track. Hypercar has to get past them as well. Almost driven into the pit lane there, oh my goodness, from the GT3 cars, and the Mustang remains ahead, and I think with a sizable gap as well.
Yeah, lock up for that Porsche into T1, as we see from the tire smoke. But the GT3s, as they've got involved in hypercar battles, it certainly hasn't put off Lancaster, who has closed back up to the rear bumper of Alfie Bevan as they head towards turn 1 in the slipstream. Once more for the red Cadillac. They're starting to close in. Alfie Bevan feeling the need to go defensive, running the pit wall and into the braking zone for T1. Big lock up for Alfie Bevan, but they get the car slowed down a little bit wider, compromises their line into T2, and Lancaster trying to carry the momentum there through turn 2 as they come on to the straight towards turn 4. Lancaster doesn't actually have that great of a run and won't be close enough as they get to the braking zone. Alfie Bevan holding on for now, struggling to get the car slowed down. You can just see the slightly different line they took in the braking zone, slightly tighter to the apex, and that's what's allowing Lancaster to just close in and continuing to apply the pressure. Lancaster just seems the slightly quicker, slightly more comfortable driver out of the pair of them, but just isn't able to get the overtake done here.
Indeed, and that's what's important in the day. It's not lap times, it's track position, and thank you indeed for the follow, Gab Reigeler. I'm going to say, I apologise. Yeah, Jack Lancaster also setting the best Sector 3 last lap in the Hyperclass, and obviously in the GT3. Well, overall field, I should say, last lap. So, as you say, does have the pace. A bit more comfortable, perhaps, as we see a squirrely moment briefly from the Cadillac of Alfie Bevan just ahead, as there's some more lap traffic they have to navigate. It's a bit one of those awkward things where sure, Jack Lancaster has pace, but is he able to actually set something up to get a move done? Or is he just waiting for something to happen where he can slip through, as there's a tiny lock up there, a tiny bit of smoke from P2 as they go through turn 1, turn 2 now, keeping it tidy. Get a bit wide there briefly from Alfie Bevan as they round turn 3 on their way to turn 4 in the slipstream, Jack Lancaster, but it's fairly even constantly throughout the section here.
Yeah, I mean, Lancaster, well, being a little bit quicker, just isn't that much quicker to get an easy move, but certainly putting the pressure on Alfie, just continuously making small little mistakes, small little lockups, as we see a yellow flag up ahead. That's a Porsche going very slowly, just about gets off the racing line, and that is Mark Bryson, by the way, that's going very slowly. As we see Alistair Ramsey, who has come in for a pit stop at this stage. That is the reason why they're not in the lead of this race. Down in P7, will be closing up to Bryson soon as we watch Jacob Hine coming up onto McLaren GT3 looking to the inside, will just get that move done. The Porsche, I believe that's Andy Hearn, will be trying to follow through, but we'll have to wait to the outside of turn 9 to get that move done, which they do indeed. But yeah, Andy Hearn just sticking on the back of Jacob Hein, as things have certainly settled down a little bit more in the second half of this race so far.
Sadly, at least until the pit stops anyway. I seem a little bit obsessed with those stops, but they are so crucial. They make so much difference. And seeing how close some of the gaps are, so just being a little bit slower can cost you at least one space. Now we can see the drivers in the hypercar field there who have stopped at least once. Dave Wood onwards there, and Tomlinson unfortunately having to stop twice, but still remains ahead of Lim Blom. Let me flip to the GT3 field as well. I imagine a lot of them have stopped already, because there's a bit of a lock-up from Jacob Hein going to turn 1. We can see that probably about half the GT3 field have stopped. Ramsey's the leader of those lap stops, as you were saying, in the Aston Martin. Ashley provisionally leaves the way, at least anyway, until he also stops, which he does now.
Into the pits for Johnny Ashley. Question is, can they come and fight in front of Ramsey? It'll all depend on their fuel usage. You don't really want to take new tyres in this race, as mentioned. There isn't really the time to make up the time left in the race to make up the time lost for changing those tyres. Plus, you also have to navigate that pit exit on cold tyres, whereas you don't change tyres, well, they'll still have some heat from this stint so far. Just make it much easier, much safer. Say a slide from Bryson as Alistair Ramsey has caught on to the back of them, and this Porsche just holding up the Aston Martin. This could be crucial in the battle for the net lead of this race.
Certainly, Johnny Ashley here leaving the pit lane, obviously, as we speak, and that will leave Ramsey, who's only just coming around turn, the final corner, in fact, maybe caught up in traffic, maybe with a slower stop. Potentially behind Ashley when everything's said and done, side by side with the Porsche, coming together with the wall, almost coming together with Mark Bryson there, and Mark Bryson slotting behind him at last there, and letting Ramsey go, but that was crucial, and maybe even with the extra damage, not very good for Alistair, as I've lost for words.
Yeah, not ideal. That's very sketchy into turn 1. Ramsey has got the move done though, and will be on their way. It'll be interesting to see how much more pace they have than Bryson, who seemed to be struggling a couple of laps ago. Of course, we've likely had a spin through turns 6 and 7, the sort of double right-hander at the start of Sector 1, as we're now watching Tim Bob, who is struggling a bit as well, being passed by Mustang. That's, I believe, being lapped by a Mustang. And so, yeah, struggling there a little bit for Tim Bob. But yeah, I imagine the difference between Ramsey pitted sort of around the halfway mark for the race. So if they've gone for a sort of a 50-50 on their sort of fuel and energy strategy, they would have been sat in the pit lane sort of refueling that energy and fuel much longer than Johnny was for the extra 10 minutes of the race. Or they've changed tyres, and, you know, changing 2 tyres costs you 5 seconds plus the extra time you lose getting them up to temperature, so maybe about 8 or 9 seconds in total. For all 4 tyres is about 13 seconds lost, then your extra cold tyre laps will be about 16 seconds. So yeah, that's sort of the extra time lost from changing tyres. And of course, with only 10 minutes left in the race, you would have to be multiple seconds a lap quicker to really make up the time.
Indeed, we see more and more drivers pit, both in the GT3 and the Hyperclass field. We see Jacob Hein there in the pits, possibly also choosing to repair that damage. Although I think if he was going to repair some damage, he might have pitted a bit sooner, so therefore probably just refueling or resetting the virtual energy. As Nick Manders here. Interesting one to watch, Nick, because we think he's going to try to go to the end. Let's have a look at his energy remaining. 21%, which is a massive difference to Saint Tut, who's on 7% battery, and even Dave Wood, actually, who has stopped 31% battery, so not far away from Manders at all. If I was a betting man, I would say Manders is probably going to go, or try to, at the end, Scotty.
Yeah, well, 20% is 1/5 of 100%. 10 minutes left in the race, let's just say for simplicity, is only 1/6. So theoretically, with the current energy usage, he is on to make the end of the race. Ben Sholly and Tyler Hammer are also very close. 16% is about 1/6 of your full 100%. So they might need to save just a little bit more to get around the final lap. But those are two more drivers that are very close to making it to the end. And that could actually put Ben Sholly within a shot for the lead. They're currently 36 seconds behind Stead and Tut out front. Don't know the exact time loss for making a splash and dash pit stop, but yeah, this, you know, after that early sort of mistake, well, we don't know exactly if it was mistake or contact for Ben Sholly that dropped them down the order, but either way, the strategy has played very well and could get them back to the front where they were at the end of qualifying.
Yeah, certainly. I think they're on that point now where, you know, it's that cusp. If they are going to try and go to the end, they have to actually decide to do it now if they haven't already, and maybe consider lifting and coasting. You know, if they continue at their rate, I think they'd probably end up needing to stop. Definitely Tut, Bevan, Lancaster. Obviously needing to stop there as Lancaster flicks to only 6%. But really, this could be, if this works, this could be almost a critical error from Tut, really, having all that opportunity without any battles at all, comfortably leading. Now having to stop, maybe, you know, what's his lead? 18 seconds? I don't know if that's enough to stop and stay in the lead, to be honest, without, you know, battling someone who isn't going to stop.
Well, I would say everyone else, apart from those sort of three names I mentioned, are going to pit it. There are more drivers that have already pitted that will make the end, of course. But we see Lancaster actually going to the outside of Bevan at turns 6 and 7 here, trying to cut back to the inside, but Bevan closing the door off. Lancaster continuing to pile the pressure on. Nearly got a mistake from Alfie Bevan. And I sort of would wonder, if you're Lancaster, do you pit this lap? Do you go for the undercut? Try and get a bit of clean air. It is a gamble, of course, but hey, you're sitting in third at the moment. You don't have that much to lose. You still have 4.5 seconds to Blomqvist. He's probably not going to overcut or undercut you. The last thing I think Lancaster wants to do is follow Bevan into the pits, and then, well, you're less likely to jump them. Yeah,
certainly. And obviously, there is pit lane collision here in ACC, LMU. And in ACC, sure, there's a difference in pit entry as we watch them come down towards someone, Lancaster, towards the outside, I believe, and trying to edge pass into provisionally P1, what could be P2 as Tut now pits round, flipping left and right between inside and outside, side by side of the Cadillac, sorry. And with the BMW background, I think it's a lap car as well to bear in mind as they head up towards turn 4 onto the brakes.
Trying to hold it around the outside. Watch the track limits. You can get an illegal overtake warning, and you will be forced to give the position up if you overtake off the track. But it looks like Lancaster has got the move done and will now have free air to start pushing. Will want a little bit of a gap just to give themselves sort of best safety margin for the pit stop that they will very likely have to make before the end of the race. Yeah, they're only on 3%. I imagine we'll see them in at the end of this lap. Alfie Bevan on 6%. Can maybe go one more lap as we see Andy Hearn coming out of the pits, having made a pit stop themselves. But yeah, this is going to be all about, can you make it to the end? It might not be Ben Sholly winning this race. If you look at the timing tar, you'll notice they've been overtaken by Nick Manders. That was going on while we were watching the battle between Lancaster and Bevan. And I think this is a good point. Sholly, as very quick driver, has been battling at the front every race so far, as we see Lancaster indeed into the pits. But Sholly has been up front every single race. They probably are the quickest driver. They put themselves on pole for this race. So you would kind of expect, once they caught up to and past Manders, that yeah, they'd be able to drive on and create a gap. But the gap never opened up, probably because he started to fuel save. Nick Manders also fuel saving a bit too. Another reason why you think that gap would open up, but not if both of them are fuel saving. Nick Manders having saved a little bit more fuel, a little bit more energy, able to push a bit more in these later stages of the race, and that could just get them the win here. Of course, that's a little unfair on Charlie. Of course, they had that spin. They had to make up a lot of time, a lot of positions from that. Lost a lot of time, battling for those positions. So, they've still done a really good job to get back up to P2 this race. Let's not take that away from them. But Nick Manders, they've pulled the strategy perfectly to potentially take the win here, as we watch Elvin Blomqvist up behind Alfie Bevan trying to take the position. There was a 4.5 second gap there a lap ago. Alfie Bevan really struggling for pace. I wonder if they're trying to save the energy to make it to the end of the race.
Yeah, possibly. I realizing maybe too late that maybe they've just got enough to go to the end, and that's actually the strategy. I just say Nick Manders perfectly saw that, I suppose, from conservatively running the throttle there, and now has 12% at the end there, where he can use it to his will, really. And I say other drivers may be having to lift and coast to get through these final few laps now, and Blomqvist leading the way. It's a tricky one at this point, because if you lift and coast, thinking maybe I can get to the end without stopping and still need to stop, that's kind of two negatives. Whereas if you just commit to one, you can kind of limit the blows, if you like. Bevan, I'm thinking, of course, has to stop. But yeah, I just say surely, definitely up to 5th. Great job for their recovery. 7% battery left, having probably able to go to the end now as well. And and I think that Manders learned a hard lesson last week when he crossed the line with 0 virtual energy and picked up a major penalty. And looking at the whole system and looking at the racing, maybe if I drive slightly differently and if I plan ahead, I can pull off a great strategy. And I think, hopefully now, a lot of people will think maybe it isn't just a foregone conclusion that I need to stop every race if I plan ahead.
Yeah, I was not expecting a race where you could get away with fuel saving and not having to pit, but looks like Blomqvist could pull this off. They come up to the line, 1 minute 30 seconds remaining. That would, according to their fastest lap of the race, 1:26.3, that would mean 2 laps remaining, but they'd only have to give up 5 seconds if they want there to be one last lap. Only problem is Sedenta is only 6 seconds back, and they won't need to fuel save at all, so it could be a bit tight here for Blomqvist. We'll have to see if they do push on for 2 more laps or if they slow down to make this the final lap of the race. Nick Manders now back behind Charlie, which could cost them a podium position actually at this rate with how the strategy has played out. And they've got Alfie Bevan only a couple of seconds back as well. So Alfie will be, of course, saving energy, is going to be dropping back, has a 13-second gap to Lancaster, will be very keen on knowing whether this race goes 1 more lap or not.
Yeah, I mean, Alfie Bevan last lap 7 seconds slower than usual, and the drivers around him. Nick has found himself in this unique spot where he's got this extra battery at the end of the race while still gaining positions, while not really needing to fuel save, and can use everything he's got. Bevan trying now, as you say, trying to go to the end, costing him whatever it takes. Doesn't matter about lap time in this, but get to the end, avoid that 130-second penalty, and get whatever position you've got at the end. Nick in 4th. Still is fighting, really. I mean, surely he's only 4/10 away. 1 lap to go, I believe, as well.
Yes, Blomqvist did make the line with a few seconds to go. There will be 1 more lap of this race. Blomqvist on to the final lap. Tut only 3 seconds back. How much energy? 2%. Alfie Bevan, 1% remaining, is not going to make the end of this race and comes into the pits. But it's all about Elvin Blomqvist, 1.6 seconds down in the first sector, held up a little bit by traffic. The car we're looking out for is the number 2 blue Cadillac that will be following. Traffic here could play a major role in deciding which hypercar wins this race. You can see Sed and Tut now just getting past one of the Aston Martins a couple of corners ago into turn 10 here, locking up. See Alfie Bevan coming out of the pits. Their energy should fix itself when they get to the end of the pit exit. But Ben Shawley here with Nick Manders right behind him. Ben Sholly will easily make it to the line, but up front, coming up to the line now, they have just about saved enough energy with taking this race win. It'll be Alvin Blomqvist making the no-stop work. Sedinta has to settle for P2, having dominated most of this race, but coming in for a pit stop. Nick Manders will take the final podium position. With P3 as Ben Sholly crawls across the line. I wonder if they maybe ran out of fuel, but not energy. Had the fuel ratio set a little too low on that car. They'll have to sell for P4 after a spin at the start of the race. Lancaster will come home for P5 in front of Tyler Hammer, who seems to have made the no-stop strategy work as well. They'll take P6 for a good strategy race from them. Steve Bain will take P7. Alfie Bevan dropping down to P8, having to pit at the start of the final lap. Devastating for them. Jacob Hine and Dave Wood will round out the top 10 in the hypercar field.
Yep, certainly. As you say, that final positions changing the end. Lancaster, surely running out of fuel, we think. And some other drivers coming to the end. Interesting race. Interesting race for a reason I didn't think it would be. As I believe everyone's crossed the line now. I'll spend my here waiting. I don't think they're in a battle. Yeah, biggest thing tonight was very interesting was the lapping traffic, in the technical sectors, and that really mixing things up along with a couple of surprise strategies at the end there, which I think, as I said, will open the door really for everyone's kind of change of thinking. As we've seen this constantly every week, we're surprised someone's made it to the end without stopping, as Olinals gives someone a push across the line.
Yeah, Johnny Ashley, she mentioned, taking the win in that GT3 field. So well done. Good strategy there from Johnny. Ramsey was really the dominant driver when it came to speed, but was not able to take the win. But yeah, let's go through our entire final results. As mentioned, Alvin Blomqvist taking the win in the end, not making a pit stop this race. Sedinta only 1.4 seconds off the win here, having committed to that pit stop despite their great pace, not able to make it work. Nick Manders fuel saving to take home P3, and Ben Sholly recovering up to P4. Great recovery. They also managed to avoid making a pit stop as well. But yeah, that's. But I imagine Ben Sholly will still be a little disappointed having started from pole position. Jack Lancaster will finish P5 ahead of Tyler Hammer. Great finish P6, making the no-stop strategy work in front of Stevie Bain. Alfie Bevan will be disappointed with P8, having to pit at the start of the final lap, running out of energy ahead of Jacob Hine. Dave Wood, both those drivers coming into issues that round out the top 10. Charlie Morgan will take P11 ahead of Andy Hearn in P12. Dave Spiller 13th, Dan Tomlinson, Max Farrell, Daniel Lindblom rounding out our hypercar field. Our GT3s then, Johnny Ashley managed to do one more lap than the rest of the GT3 pack. Trinket Tass would take second, and Alistair Ramsey was leading the way up until her pit stop halfway through the race that unfortunately sees a bit of a strategy misstep for them, finishing down in third. Basker will take P4 ahead of Vesperas. Fuskin in P6, Simon Harris P7, Paul O'Grady P8, Mark Bryson P9, Ryan Davies P10 ahead of Ben Matt, Daniel Benz, Tim Bob, Christian Schlink, Ollie Knowles, Dart Page and Dean Smith did not finish the race, our only DNF throughout the 33 car field.
Indeed. That was a great race for watching from a commentating perspective. Definitely going to make the standings a bit interesting, obviously, with mixing up of strategies with some issues. Obviously, Dan Tomlinson dropping down the order, for instance, and Nick Manders with his strategy play moving up the order. I'm stalling as I look for the next race next week. Algarve, Portugal. Fantastic track yet again. And another one we don't see in ACC, obviously.
Yes, a very interesting track, of course, described like a roller coaster with the elevation changes, dropping down into turn 1, cresting over the turn 4 apex. It is a wild ride up and down the track. And just to make things a little more interesting, it will also be our first wet race of the season. LMU, not the most interesting when it comes to rain, but the spray is very intense, very difficult to see through, and will obviously make the less grip will make it even easier for the hypercars to lock up with, especially going over some of the crests in the braking zones. It'll be a very, very difficult time for our drivers next time out. But yeah, it'll be a very interesting challenge.
Indeed, we'll be very excited for that. I'd say our first rain race, really, in LMU. Visibility, as always, will be a challenge. Grip, even more so. And again, maybe that'll throw the strategy into a bit of play with lower fuel in the wet. And again, wet tires, that's something they're not used to. So maybe the grip's different, maybe the wear's different. We don't know. We'll have to find out. It'll be very interesting. I look forward to that. But for this week, thank you everyone, obviously, for watching. Thank you for joining us in chat. Thank you for racing with us. Yeah, Scotty, anything else?
Wow, a chaotic race with the traffic. Portimao could be the same with its challenges and elevations. And the rain as well, the lack of visibility. And yeah, my brain was a little fried at the end of this race. I kind of hope it isn't next week, but bring on the action.
Yeah, definitely. Do join us again next week for that. Will be very interesting, very good. And from my perspective, being a bit of a nerd, I think it'll be a bit of a cinematic watch, if I'm honest, with the rain and the spray and everything else. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what that is like. Plenty of stuff on this week as well. Outside of LMU, we've got ACC racing, AC racing, iRacing, all sorts of things to join in, to watch, to enjoy. So do join us again throughout the week. I think the schedule's on the Twitch page as well. But yeah, I think for us, I'll just see everyone next week, Scotty.
Indeed. Thanks for watching. Take care and hopefully see you for some of our racing coming up throughout the week.
Indeed. Thank you, everyone. Good night.